Hey everyone, Brad at Kayak Angler here. In the man cave, a little messy still, but today we're just going to show you some of the thoughts behind the creation of our custom aluminum tracks to replace the factory ones, the Sportsman series kayaks. Fit basically everything other than the big waters, but we've got something coming for that too. I want to make a big call out to Mark at Toolpath Design. Mark couldn't be here today, but Mark's done a lot of this work with us and really helped us, I think, create a great product. And then Clay and Ludic for doing some of the testing, along with myself, to the iterations we've gone through and things we've tried. Some worked, some didn't work, but I think what we've got is something that you're going to enjoy for a long time. Key things for us in the process were making sure we create a quality product, put some innovation behind it, and create value for the end user. So price is always a consideration. At the end of the day, securing our gear was probably our priority because, again, losing a rod and reel, downrigger, losing a big fish is probably a bigger risk than the cost of something like this. So we wanted to factor that into things. Anyways, why a two-piece design? The first thing was really a supply chain, given that half-inch stock is really hard to find up here in Canada right now, so it did put some limitations on us, and when we created a product we wanted to be able to deliver it, so that was one of the things. The other thing that we looked at is, obviously this is the original one, is basically we have to go and cut a channel in there. Anytime you're cutting into, whether it be aluminum, plastic, or anything, you reduced its tensile strength essentially. So we thought about that, and then so by going with the two-piece design with the bottom spacer and then the top rail, basically you've got 100% solid top rail for your holding strength. So we basically haven't had to go in here and cut anything out of this. The only thing we have done is, if you look at T-bolts, and we've tested them with all the brands that are out there, and we've done some aftermarket brands, and if you look at them in detail, there's a little bit of almost like the connection between the bolt and the T. There's a little ridge in there, and what we found is that was catching on things. So what we've done in here is we've put a small chamfer in here, which really solved the issues. It's a little more cutting time, but it makes for a really smooth sliding rail. So that was one little adjustment that we did make. So in terms of the bottom spacer, this is created out of marine starboard. So a little bit more expensive than your traditional HDPE. At the same point in time, totally weather resistant, color won't fade. At a later date, if somebody said to us, we want to custom color this, you can do that. We'd have to have a big enough order to do that, but you can get this custom colored. Probably in today's market, hard to do because of supply, but it does come in custom colors if you want to do that. So really good product, stables, used on boats everywhere. I have a bunch of it on my main boat, so great product, and it's not going to deteriorate over time. So basically, stacking the two together, we create that half-inch profile that you've got right now. Your head's going to go in. Oops. And we'll show some installs later, but nice, smooth sliding along there. So a couple other things we noted when we did things. Obviously, here's the original one, and the advantage of aluminum is you don't have this movement. You do still get some though, as much as it's super, it's not pliable like this. If you push in the middle, you do get a little bit of movement. The other thing we found is, obviously, is when we started looking at the holes as they were drilled, we found that they almost, in some kayaks, they serpentined a little bit. So they serpentined, and then they were offset. Now that's why Old Town's given us these holes in there, but the holes are they move in the one direction in the length. And we found that, so as a result of that, we had some kayaks where this was quite wide, some where it was quite narrow. Now again, with plastic and any kind of metal going through there, basically, let's get that in there. Let's go in from this end. So that's already gotten a little tight. So anyways, we put it in there. If there's any pinch point or anything, you're sliding plastic on metal, so you can force it through there pretty well. If you do that with metal on metal, that's not going to happen. you'll actually start peeling the metal, you'll create resistance. So we wanted to avoid that. So we did a bunch of testing, and I've just made a few minor, very minor modifications to the slot in terms of its dimension, and what a world of difference. After installing it on like 20 different kayaks, we had zero problems with anything really. So that's been a really good addition to test that and figure that out. The other thing we did a little bit is, I don't know if you're like me, but when I got out there, these pulled up a lot of water, seemed awful big. And again, like I just said, they allow movement certainly along the long axis, but not so much on the cross axis. So we've changed it up a little bit. Our holes are a little bit smaller, but our holes that we have on here are basically a little bit smaller. They're not as elongated, but we've increased the size as well along the cross axis a little bit. So it does have a little bit more play. And then we've also countersink. The countersink on it is not the same size. So we've created a smaller countersink on these to allow sort of better holding power of it. So we reduced the amount of metal we're taking out, and we found that it's worked extremely well. We did notice when we've done some installs and that in some cases screws were put in at large angles. We actually found when we removed some of the plates that in some cases there was already extra holes drilled. So although we haven't had to drill an extra hole on anything yet, there may be the odd instance where somebody does have to drill an extra hole to make it work. But pretty much that's it. Again, two-piece construction allows us to change this. The other thing it allows is as the kayak moves in that, we can have our bottom plate is going to conform, because of it being the marine starboard, more to the kayak itself, because it's not quite as rigid. So it will move a little bit more with the kayak, and leaving our top plate to stay intact the whole time. So we think it's it's basically a really great design. We're anxious to get it out there in the market and have you test it. After this part, I'm going to tie into a little bit of video we filmed to show you the quality of the product and our testing in the shop with it. So thanks for supporting Canadian small business. We think you'll get a lifetime of use out of these, and if you have any feedback for us or questions, send us an email. Thanks everybody, be safe on the water and take somebody fishing.